Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session for the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles featuring in the Hindu newspaper and understand them from the UPSC examination point of view. Let's take up today's discussion with the important articles. The important articles which appear in today's newspaper are on our screens, and let's start with the first article for today. The first article which appears in the newspaper talks about a fresh new concept being introduced by the Indian government about the open network for digital commerce. Now, this is a fresh intervention that the government of India is making, and a pilot project for this concept is going to be applied in 5 cities. So, we will understand what this open network for digital commerce is, what exactly it is, what was the need for introducing this, and what are the features of it, and how can it benefit the consumers in the industry. So, first of all, it becomes a part for us to study from the GS3 point of view. We will understand about the concept. So, in a nutshell, what is the open network for digital commerce? First of all, as I said, this is a private pilot project being applied in 5 cities. Basically, this is going to be a platform for digital commerce. As we have Amazon, as we have Flipkart, where we log into the platform, choose the kind of product that we buy and order from them. This is going to be one such platform for digital commerce. But how exactly is it going to be different from Amazon and Flipkart or platforms like that? We will see. So, first of all, the aim of this open network is to democratize the country's fast growing digital commerce space that is currently dominated by the foreign firms. Now, what happens due to these foreign firms is that a lot of sellers are registered on these foreign firms, such as Amazon, Flipkart, which is now owned by a foreign company known as Walmart. So, due to them holding the digital e-commerce market, what happens is that a limited number of sellers and a limited number of buyers are registered on the platform. That is why the benefit of digital e-commerce or ordering online the desired goods and services is not able to accessed by everyone in the country or most number of people in the country. That is why there is a need to democratize this system, wherein more and more number of people are able to avail these digital e-commerce services. So, how is the open network for digital commerce going to do that? Similar on the lines of UPI. We will understand. So, what is this open network for digital commerce? So, first of all, it is going to be a not-for-profit organization. So, as these are companies, Amazon, Flipkart are generally companies, ONDC is going to be a not-for-profit organization that will offer a network to enable local digital commerce stores across industries to be accessed by any network enabled applications. How to understand this in simple words now? Let's imagine a situation wherein we log into Amazon and we try to order a product, but there is a seller who is logged in or who is registered only on Amazon and he is not there on Flipkart, or he is there on Flipkart and we are logging from the Amazon app. Can it happen that we can order the desired good or service whatever we want from Flipkart while logging in from Amazon? This interchanging of the platform access is something that we see in UPI interface these days, wherein no matter which app we are using for payment, we can access it via a single QR and we can transfer the payment from one app wire to another app, and being registered or logged in different apps does not make a difference. Similar is going to be the service in digital e-commerce, where when we log in to this open network digital commerce platform, whichever seller is registered on either Amazon or either Flipkart, does not matter if we are logging into their platform or not. By logging into this one singular platform, we will be able to access all the products that are existing in all these platforms. Of course, the condition is going to be that these firms, these platforms such as the e-commerce platforms need to be registered with first the ONDC as well. When they will come on board, like with the advent of UPI, all of these UPI operators would have agreed to be facilitated by one single QR. So similarly, these foreign firms will have to register with the ONDC, and that is when this service will be able to avail by the consumers. So this is a one step closer to the ease for consumers, wherein if they would have faced difficulty with logging in multiple platforms or finding one seller at one platform but not finding it on the other. So this difficulty is solved by the open network for digital commerce, and this is the aim for democratizing. This is how it would be democratizing, by making the services more inclusive and easily available. So therefore, it is neither an aggregator, which these platforms generally are, nor a hosting platform. This is merely a facilitator for these services, where it will bring all these platforms together and make the products available for across platforms. It does not matter if you are logged in or registered in one platform and not in other. And all existing networks can choose to be a part, right? This would be a prerequisite for the functioning of ONDC. And this open network concept also extends beyond the retail sector. So the potential of this concept is quite high, because the number of products and goods that can be availed through this is not limited just to the retail sector, but to any digital commerce domains, including wholesale, mobility, food delivery, logistics, travel, urban services, etc. So it might even happen that there's your favorite restaurant which is registered with one food delivery app, but you are logged into another food delivery app, but via using the open network for digital commerce platform, it won't matter which platform you are registered in or not. All the restaurants which are registered with both food delivery apps, you will be able to order from any of them. So this would be the benefit that would be accruing because of this new advent of digital e-commerce intervention, which is pertaining to cause ease for the consumers. So this is the concept of ONDC. But why was this needed? Why the need to streamline this process? As I mentioned earlier, there was a huge disconnect between the scale of online demand, which is rising, more and more people are ordering online, and the ability of the local retail ecosystem to participate. So we know that these online firms, online e-commerce aggregators, whatever conditions they have, it makes difficult for the local retailers to come on board for them. And that is why what happens is that only the high retailers get to participate in this digital e-commerce sector, and the local retailers are not able to participate. This is where the concept of ONDC will come in, where even the local retailers would be able to participate. Hence again enlarging the pool of services available to consumers, and also the accessibility for sellers to market their products. So this is a major intervention that the ONDC is doing. Now what benefits will it bring? So like we are discussing, democratization of the field, inclusivity for all the sellers to come and participate, not just the high retailers but the local retailers as well, better opportunities and options for the consumers, ease of doing shopping for the consumers. All of these are benefits, and the ONDC will standardize operations like cataloging, inventory management, order management and order fulfillment. All of these services which are from the end of the service providers or these digital commerce platform, this open network will facilitate these services for them, making it simpler and easier for small businesses who will be new to these functions. They will be facilitated with this, and therefore they would be also be facilitated to discover over network and conduct business more favorably, hence accruing the benefit of digital e-commerce to everyone. And it is said that over the next 5 years, the ONDC is expecting to bring on board 90 crore users and 12 lakh sellers on the network, because the local retailer potential market is quite high, enabling 730 crore additional purchases and an additional gross merchandising value or GMV of rupees 3.75 crore. So it is said to increase the amount of business that happens via digital e-commerce based bringing in the concept of ONDC by increasing the consumers as well and the number of sellers that are selling their products as well. So this is the backdrop regarding ONDC, which is freshly being promulgated, and it is in a pilot project form. It will be applied in 5 cities. Which are those 5 cities? Delhi NCR, Bengaluru, Shillong, Bhopal and Coimbatore. In these 5 cities, this concept would be first tested and seen as to how it is being implemented, and the government has also instituted an advisory council wherein stalwarts in the digital technology sector such as Nandan Nilekani and industry experts and CEOs of a lot of related industries have been set up to look into this matter and to suggest changes and what can be done with this concept. So as and when this gets developed, we will be looking at this in more detail, but the introduction of it is a good step in the direction of making services available to consumers and sellers. So with this, let's move on to the next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper reads, RBI moots IT outsourcing norms for banks NBFCs. Now this is again a big move by RBI, which is trying to streamline the outsourcing services. Now what are outsourcing services? We will look at that, but to streamline these services, RBI has brought a draft notification known as Master Direction on Outsourcing Information Technology Services. So it has brought out rules for certain banks and all these entities which perform banking functions for their rules on outsourcing. Now what exactly is meant by outsourcing? When we talk about outsourcing, the banking institutions and all other institutions which perform similar functions, at the back end of them, they have a lot of IT solutions and IT functions that they need to perform. So these IT functions a lot of times are not the expertise of the banking institutions, right? So that is why they outsource or they hire a third party to carry out these IT functions, such as maintaining catalogs, when whatever banking services we avail via online website services like logging into the banking website. So managing the bank website, managing the banking services and dashboard on that website, all of these are IT functions which are not necessarily performed by the banks themselves, and they delegate these functions to a third parties who are IT companies, software companies who perform these functions for the banks. This is known as outsourcing the IT functions to third parties. Now the banks are performing very critical functions of handling the money of the consumers in the market. That is why this outsourcing should not be left unregulated and it should be checked. That is why RBI has brought out norms for effective outsourcing, that it is not a problem that these banks are outsourcing their IT services or IT functions, but it needs to be done with apt regulation and standards need to be maintained. So pertaining to the regulations, let's see what they are. So proposed norms for outsourcing to be regulated entities. So all these banking institutions who perform these functions are called regulated entities. Those entities which perform the functions of banking and are regulated by RBI are known as regulated entities. And what are those entities? Cooperative banks, credit information companies, NBFCs or non-banking financial services. All of these entities come under the bracket of regulated entities. So for these regulated entities, the norms for IT outsourcing are being put out, which say that first of all, these regulated entities would not require prior approval from the central bank for the outsourcing of IT and IT enabled services. So the first norm is that they would not require the prior approval. They have been given a free hand in availing the services of a third party for outsourcing their IT services. So they can do that without approval. right? Then the second norm is that they would be required to set up a comprehensive board approved IT sourcing policy. Now, giving a free hand that you can avail your outsourcing of IT services, but after doing that, or in order to do that, to make sure that it is a robust system for outsourcing, they have to set up a comprehensive board approved IT sourcing policy. So everything should be on paper so that there are no ambiguities. So this is one first requirement that the important requirement that the norms proposed by RBI suggest. The second is that this standard of outsourcing, whatever the IT services are required for the safety and ease of the banking services which would be provided to the consumers, they should not be compromised. So the standard of outsourcing should not be compromised is the another norms proposed by the RBI. This then the regulated entities should set up a robust grievance redressal mechanism. A lot of times in the banking services, consumers face a lot of complaints, they face delays and other problems while experiencing their services. So in these services, let's say a lot of times the server is crashed, a lot of times accessing the websites for the banks, the consumers are not able to access the website properly. All of these become a part of problems faced by the consumers. So for these problems, the regulated entities should have a grievance redressal mechanism, which means that they cannot shy away from the problems that are being caused by the IT enabled services, and they are equally responsible for the problems caused by them. It does not matter that they have outsourced this service and that they cannot shrug off this responsibility. Therefore, the responsibility for redressal of customer grievances related to outsourced services would rest with the regulated entities. This is to not let them shoulder off their responsibility with respect to the grievances. And what is the principle behind all of these norms? The principle is that the regulated entities should ensure that outsourcing arrangements neither diminishes its ability to fulfill the obligation to its customers nor impede effective supervision by the supervising authority. What this means is that there should be a balance between you managing your core functions and delegating the IT enabled functions to someone else or a third party, but at the same time maintain enough supervision that these IT enabled services are looked upon and looked into, that they are safe, secure and the grievances are always dealt into. So this is the new norms which are propagated by RBI with respect to outsourcing of IT enabled services. Currently RBI has proposed these norms and they are they have given a certain time period asking for reply from all these entities, and once that arrives, these norms would be finalized. So this is the discussion regarding the RBI's norms for outsourcing of these IT enabled services by these regulated entities. With this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper reads, "The problems plaguing the thermal power generators." Now, the discussions on coal, thermal power, we are repeatedly saying, because a lot of news has come with respect to coal shortage. We must be seeing in the past month where there was a lot of coal shortage. So there are many problems that the thermal power generators or the companies who generate power using coal are facing. So in this article, we will be discussing what exactly this problem are, what is the context that we are talking about, and what are the required and relevant data with respect to these particular problems. So we look at the problems faced by these companies. So first of all, on June 10th, India's power demand touched 211 megawatt. Why this data is important? Because this demand for above 200 megawatt is a huge news, because not very rarely the demand for power for India goes beyond 200 megawatts. It has not, and in the recent month it has gone above the requirement for 200 megawatts a few times. That is why we can see that the demand for power in the past few months has been increased. What can be the reasons for rise in demand of power for the past few months? Increasing heat, right? Increased amount of heat or harsh summer increases the demand for power because more number of people are running their air conditioners, running desert coolers, so more power is needed. That is why the demand for power in the past 2 months has been continuously increasing. But in the front of coal availability, there has been coal shortage and depleting coal stocks with respect to the domestic coal companies. So the domestic coal production has not been that high and there is coal shortage, but demand for power has risen, the reasons for which I just discussed. To bridge this gap, recently power generating companies, which are also known as GenCos, were directed to use imported coal for 10% of their requirement. This was a news which was there in the newspaper some time back, wherein the government directed these generating companies to use imported coal for their 10% of the requirement. Since there is shortage of domestic coal, the government directed that 10% of your total requirement fulfill it through by using imported coal. So all of this news is pertaining to the grim situation that we are facing with respect to the coal sector and the power sector, where there is rising demand but the availability of domestic coal is high. Is the import of coal also very easy? Are we able to import coal easily? We'll look at this in a moment. So India is also, in this backdrop, the second largest producer of coal with reserves that could last up to 100 years. Now, why is this paradox coming, wherein we have a lot of reserves, we are the second largest producer, yet the coal shortage is happening and the demand is rising? Why is this happening? First reason is that the coal production is getting stagnated and the demand for power is rising. In this chart, we can see that these bar graphs on the left axis showcase coal production. So coal production from 2010 to 2021-22 has increased, but it stagnated from the year 2018 to 2021, and in 2022 marginally increased. So this shows that the domestic coal production has been not increasing to that much pace, but energy demand, which is reflected from the this side, the energy demand is continuously increasing, which shows that the energy demand increase is not able to be matched up by the domestic coal production. So this is becoming first major reason why the power generating companies are facing a problem. Then secondly, reason 2 is that coal imports by GenCos are decreasing. So as the government directed to import 10% of coal for the to use 10% of imported coal for their requirements, but it is also to be noted that this imported coal is very costly right now due to skyrocketing international coal prices, due to fluctuating markets. That is why it is very difficult for the generating companies to import coal, and which is why coal imports by these GenCos are decreasing, which has gone down from 10% to 3.8% in 2022. So this coal imports also the GenCos are not able to do. The reason is skyrocketing prices of coal in the international market. See, this is the domestic price, which is way down from the international price, which is continuously fluctuating and ever increasing in the price of coal. And whereas the price of international coal is 5 to 6 times high than the domestic coal. That is why also it discourages the GenCos to import coal from international markets. Right? But import of costly coal could increase the cost of power as well. This is also one additional impact that will be created, that if costly coal will be imported by the GenCos, the power that would be produced, the cost of that power would also be increased due to the increased price of the imported coal. So that is also an impact, that it would increase the cost of power as well. So another reason is decreasing coal imports due to high rise of coal in the international market. Then this shortfall of decreased quantity of coal has put the power plants in a precarious position. because there is depleting stocks of coal in these power plants. So therefore, about 79 of the 150 plants that depend on domestic coal had critical stocks, which means less than 25% of the required stock of the coal that is required to function for them. So they have 79 of them, less than 79 of them have less than 25% of the coal stock required. So this is again a situation that arises due to the depleting stocks of coal. Then another fact is that the use of imported coal will also put stress on power distributing companies. Now there is a whole chain as to when from the piece of coal which gets processed in this thermal power plant and where the electricity reaches our house. This coal is first used by these power generating companies and processed to generate electricity, and when they have generated electricity using coal, they transfer that electricity to an entity known as power distributing companies, which are also known as DISCOMs, right. So those entities which transfer electricity to our households are not done by the GENCOs, they are done by the distributing companies or DISCOMs. Now it's very logical for us to analyze if there is depleting coal reserves with the GENCOs, the prices of importing coal is higher. If the prices of importing coal gets higher, the prices of producing electricity or power gets high. Similarly, that impact will also put stress on the power distributing companies, where they would also be able would have to purchase that power at higher prices, especially when the condition of DISCOMs is already very bad, where they already have large dues, which means they have large amount of money to pay, as much as 1.16 lakh crore to the GENCOs, which means that these DISCOMs are already under much stress and they already have a lot of money to pay to the GENCOs who they buy electricity or power from. Then this delays in payments, when the DISCOMs are not able to pay the GENCOs, this puts stress on the GENCOs as well, wherein it creates working capital crunch for these power generating companies, which in turn inhibits their ability to import because they have less money available with them to import coal again. So this cycle of between the power generating companies and DISCOMs due to money mismanagement as well as the depleting coal reserves is a major problem that is arising, which will result into either less availability of electricity, resulting into power cuts for many households, or increased price of the electricity for us. This would be the outcome that can come from it. And with respect to DISCOMs, why are the DISCOMs under such stress? As to why do they have so much revenue to pay? That can also be a question to ask, where why are they faulting at payments to the GENCOs? Because these DISCOMs are to be subsidized by the government. The amount of revenue that they earn via supplying the electricity to our houses is much less than what they are paying to buy this electricity from the GENCOs. So they have a big revenue and supply gap. The revenue they generate is much lower than the cost. That is, see, the chart shows the gap between DISCOM's cost of supply and the average revenue realized in per kilowatt. So which means that these states which are being shown, if they are in the positive sphere, then it means that all of these positive figures show that the revenue that they are earning is much less than the cost of the electricity that they that was incurred upon them to buy the electricity. So this again shows the dismal situation of the DISCOMs as well. And why is this happening? Because there is being delay in getting compensation from the governments which was promised to them. So that is why again delay for them in compensation, in turn they are not able to pay to the GENCOs. So this is the scenario with respect to what is ailing the thermal power generating companies and the problems that are being faced in the industry, right. So this was the discussion on the important points with respect to their problems, and with this we come to the end of today's discussion for important articles. We'll meet again tomorrow with the important articles from the newspaper. Thank you.